Well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Hobb. I am a speech-language pathologist and the leader for the Meadowlark Parkinson's program and the Meadowlark Memory Program. And we'll just do that part first.
My name is Linda Montgomery. I am a social worker at Meadowlark Hills as well.
And we just first off want to say thank you for being leaders in forging through helping individuals and their loved ones with dementia or Parkinson's or other neurological diseases so that they can all live their best lives with support. So by you guys all being here and for the crew that has been leading the forces to get to this point, I just want to say thank you. So if you don't mind, this wasn't on my script, but those of you that have been on the steering committee, would you guys mind standing so that people know who our leaders are for this? Yay! Good job, you guys. All right, so just a little bit of background. I mentioned that I'm a speech-language pathologist, and for the last 22 years, I've really been focusing on individuals with neurological disorders, more progressive, as in Parkinson's and dementias. And I've worked for many years longer than that, throughout the lifespan and in every setting possible. But this is really where my heart and my soul is, in helping individuals to really walk the best path that they can and give them the support and the education to be able to make choices and to improve communications and interactions with their loved ones. I live in St. George, Kansas. I have two sons, adult sons, which that's actually the first time I've ever said that, which is kind of freaky, and a husband who works at K-State. And I've been at Meadowlark for 19 years, well, 20 years actually.
Okay. Again, my name is Linda, and I grew up in northwestern Kansas on a farm. I am married, and we have two dogs. We consider them our kids as well. A little background information about me. Gosh, it's really weird to say this, but I've been working with older adults for 27 years, and the majority of that has been working in adult day centers in Houston and Denver. And in those centers, we provided socialization, wellness oversight, and activities for people with dementia. And so a majority of my career was focused on working with caregivers as well as people with dementia. I now work at Meadowlark. I work on the healthcare side, so I am often visiting people in different households and so forth. Kind of a fun fact is I actually, when I first went into social work, I thought I would work with kids. I grew up in foster care, and so I thought I was going to help kids like I was helped. And God had a different plan for me because I ended up volunteering. You had to do so many volunteer hours at the senior center with a club program, which is very much like a memory cafe program that we're hoping to develop here. And then I also did my social work internship at Meadowlark, and then so many years later, I'm back. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our slides. We're going to talk first about mild cognitive impairment. We'll refer to it as MCI. This is where noticeable changes in thinking and memory that are more significant than what is expected with normal aging. These changes are real and measurable, but not severe enough to significantly interfere with daily activities. MCI can be an early stage of cognitive decline. Something that's important to note is that MCI is not a diagnosis of dementia, but it is a signal to pay closer attention to cognitive changes that may be going on. MCI is recognized by the person themselves. It may or may not necessarily be recognized by others around them. MCI does not impact functional skills. So things like taking care of your personal care needs, such as taking a shower, generally doesn't impact communication or socialization and money management, so forth. MCI may or may not be reversible, and it may or may not progress to dementia. So what is dementia? Okay, so dementia is a progressive degenerative disease, which means it will gradually progress over time. It often starts out as short-term memory loss and can complicate learning and the retention of new information. The disease usually progresses slowly, and as it progresses, language impairment occurs due to damage in brain areas affected and responsible for communication. Memory and language deficits are interconnected, and over time, dementia results in cognitive decline, communication issues, behavioral changes, which affect both the individual and the care partner. This illustrates the complex relationship between memory and language in dementia. Dementia can profoundly impact how individuals perceive the world through their 5 senses, so vision, hearing, touch, smell, taste. These alterations may result in misperception, misidentifications, and hallucinations, which hinder a person's ability to comprehend and engage with their surroundings. And we will go into that a little bit more in depth in our next session on the 20th, where we'll talk about how to work around some of those, how those people are impacted. But, dementia will interfere with daily functioning where MCI does not. So you may find that they're not showering as often. Maybe they're not remembering to shower, or they're starting to have difficulty managing money. So you just start to notice those declines in those areas as well.
Now we're going to do some passing back and forth of the microphone, so bear with us a little bit. So a very common question, especially as individuals start to reach mid-age, is what's the difference between normal aging changes in our brain and dementia? So one of the primary things is that it's functional. So when an individual with a normal aging change, they may forget the day of the week, or they may walk into a room and wonder, what am I here after? Anyone relate to that? Okay, good. So those are signs of very normal aging.
Whereas with dementia, they may become lost in familiar places. For example, they may have gone to the gym daily, and now they've gone to the gym and it's time to go home and they can't remember how to get home.
So forgetting names is a typical normal part of aging. We get distracted, we meet somebody, we say, oh, nice to meet you, and then we start getting involved in a conversation, and the next thing we know, we have no idea what that person's name was. That's a matter of attention. It's a very normal part of aging. And that can also be the same with forgetting something on your schedule. Maybe you have 5 things on your schedule for the day, and then you forgot one. Very typical normal aging.
With dementia, you may find that the person's forgetting more often and is unable to recall newly learned information. So that, again, that short-term memory being impacted.
Understanding and using language. Normal aging individuals might forget what they want to say. It's on the tip of my tongue. I know what it is. I just can't pull it up right now. And then you remember it at 3 o'clock in the morning, right?
So with dementia, it may be forgetting the steps to complete a common task, like brushing your teeth, or a recipe that you've always made.
In normal aging, putting things away may be different. You might always think that you're going to put your keys or your wallet on the little table when you walk in, but then lo and behold, the next time you need to leave, your keys and your wallet aren't where you thought you put them or where you normally put them.
With dementia, it's actually picking up the keys and looking at them and not sure what they are actually used for. Or you might find them put in places you normally wouldn't put the keys, like the freezer.
Executive function changes are things where we're looking at reasoning, problem solving, sequencing, organizing. With normal aging, we may not be sequencing correctly. So for example, if we were baking cookies and we always do it a certain routine, a certain sequence of events, but we forgot to turn the oven on and we made all of our ingredients put together already. So our sequencing is off. And it can also be where an individual is beginning to have difficulty with like balancing the checkbook. So you've got multi-steps, some different processing that you're working on, and some problem solving when you're working on a checkbook. So starting to have some of those difficulties.
With dementia, the difference would be that you're giving away large sums of money to clearinghouses or telemarketers, or you're no longer able to count the money.
And then mood and interest changes. Occasional sadness or moodiness is something that can be a very part of normal aging.
And with dementia, you may see rapid mood changes for no apparent reason. So one minute they might be laughing, and the next they're crying. So there are different types of dementia. We're going to talk about a few of those today. Dementia is an umbrella term. It's used to describe a group of brain disorders that cause a gradual decline in cognitive abilities, such as memory, thinking, and reasoning. It is not a specific disease itself, but rather a term that encompasses various conditions that share common symptoms and characteristics. For example, examples of dementia include those on the screen: Alzheimer's, vascular, Lewy bodies, frontotemporal, Parkinson's, and so forth. With dementia, people often think of Alzheimer's disease. When you hear dementia, they kind of coincide. And a big reason for that is 60 to 80% of people are diagnosed with Alzheimer's. But dementia is not a diagnosis, the Alzheimer's disease is. Parkinson's disease is the second most common degenerative disease. Michelle's going to touch on that a little bit more here in a minute. Lewy bodies is characterized often as having more hallucinations. Frontotemporal is where the person has decreased filters. So a good way to explain that would be, we all have learned different ways to be socially appropriate. For someone whose frontal lobe is impacted, they may just blurt out whatever they're thinking and don't remember, it's not nice to say that. So, younger or early onset Alzheimer's disease can be more difficult for the person who has been diagnosed, as well as their family, because expectations for productive life is hindered. They're at a younger age. It also can be difficult in finding resources and finding things to help. For instance, if you're needing a care setting, it's more difficult to find placement for someone who is younger versus older. Each of these types of dementia affect the brain differently, and not all types will affect memory. So some will affect problem solving, some impulse control, decision making, hallucinations, etc.
Before we move on to the Parkinson's for just a little bit, are there any questions about dementia or MCI, the mild cognitive impairment? If at any time you have a question, just jump out too. Yes?
You talked about early onset. What ages are you talking about early onset Alzheimer's?
So it can be as young as the 20s. Typically, I think the average age for young onset is 40. Is that correct?
Yeah. I had a friend in her 30s that was diagnosed with dementia. Yeah.
And these are kind of average age overall studies of when Alzheimer's is diagnosed generally.
Generally, on average, You're probably looking more into 70s, 80s.
Yeah, I don't have the exact age, but I can look that up really quick. I do know for Parkinson's, the average age of diagnosis is 65, 62, 65. So yeah, I do believe the average is a little bit higher with dementia, but we can look that up for you too. And yeah, and if we don't know the answer to something, we can get you that. Yes?
Is it always hereditary?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Is it hereditary?
Is dementia hereditary? So that's a good question. We do know that there are some genetic components. There are some genes that have been directly identified to have a causal effect, but then there are also some that we don't know. So it could be. And actually, maybe should I just jump up to that slide?
Yeah.
Let me jump to that slide. Actually, it's a really good question. So when we do think about dementias and neurological diseases in general, what we do know is that we have some modifiable things in our world that we can control. So about 40% of the risk of dementias can be modifiable. And this graph here shows you an example of that. Some of the things that we can really focus on is that hearing loss, depression, traumatic brain injury, physical inactivity, and the excessive alcohol. Those are all things that that increase our risk of acquiring dementia. So if we can really focus on those things throughout our midlife and even early life, we can decrease that risk. So even if we do have a genetic component, we can have some control on that. I want to address the hearing loss because that is one of the most important things to know. If you have a loved one or a friend or family member that is starting to kind of withdraw and pull away, or just not following directions, doesn't seem to really be clicking, get their hearing tested if they haven't had it tested recently. There is a very significant, as you can see here, 7% reduction, but we know too that there's a greater risk of dementia when people don't have unaided hearing loss, okay? And then the other part of that here too is socialization and visual challenges. Those are a couple other things that if we can get people involved and engaged and active and make sure that their vision is corrected as well, we can decrease those risks of not engaging and not participating in the world, okay? So what is Parkinson's disease? As Linda mentioned, Parkinson's disease is the second most common progressive degenerative disease in the world. So this is a really large part of our population as well. Like dementia, Parkinson's typically progresses more slowly. So it's not a really rapid progression. Unless it is an atypical Parkinson's, which as she was describing with the umbrella of dementia, we also have different categories of Parkinson's. And those atypicals like progressive supranuclear palsy, Lewy body dementia is also considered a Parkinsonism because it starts with the cognitive challenges, and within about a year they start to develop the Parkinsonian physical symptoms. So anytime we are having those typical ones will be more slow progressing. These symptoms that you see on this iceberg begin showing up when about 80% of the dopamine producing cells in the brain are already dead. So we can see that a lot of the damage is done before we start to see those outward symptoms. What I really like to highlight is that people are going to recognize and notice the tremor often, but not everyone has a tremor. The slow movements, the rigidity of movements and muscles, which can cause pain. and then the postural disturbances, which can cause falls. So one of the big things I want you to notice, though, is all the things underneath the ice, underneath the water that these individuals are experiencing. These are more of our invisible diseases. And when you guys think about dementia, we often think about that as an invisible disease as well, right? So it's so important, and that's why I love having all of you here, to be recognizing that we're not always going to see the outward things that people are struggling with. And so the more that you know about dementia and Parkinson's, the better your ability to be able to empathize and show support for these folks. So let's talk a little bit about what some of these specific symptoms are. We talked about the slow movements, the rigidity, the tremors, the postural instability, and then the quiet voice. Those are all some of the primary motor symptoms that we'll see. Then we look at the cognitive component for our folks. The slow thinking, if we're having slow movement, we're also going to have slow thinking. And our folks with Parkinson's tend to have more of the executive function challenges. So solving problems, organizing, understanding cause and effect, to being able to sequence the steps to go from sitting to standing, and switching tasks. When we think about some of the primary differences between cognitive functions in our folks with dementia, particularly Alzheimer's disease, I like to think about it like it's a file cabinet. So their brain is a file cabinet, and they have all of these memories labeled and filed in the file cabinet, right? You've got all the files, you've got all the papers within there. With Alzheimer's, it's as if someone comes in and just takes the files out of the drawer and just gets rid of them. So no matter how hard those folks try, they're not able to find it because it's no longer there. With our folks with Parkinson's, those files are still in the drawer, but someone has come in and mixed them all up and then made it really hard for them to find quickly, okay? So most of the time, those things are still filed, they're just disorganized, and it's harder and slower for them to find them. From a mood perspective, because of the dopamine changes, we are going to notice more of the depression, apathy, anxiety, and then also that decreased reward motivation. So our folks with Parkinson's need to be exercising and need to be engaging. However, they don't get that reward out of the task that they're doing, like you and I. If we know that we go for a walk and then we get chocolate chip cookies, that reward motivation to go for that walk is pretty high. But with this disease, that isn't what happens.
So we're going to touch a little bit on getting dementia diagnosed. One of the first steps is to talk with the primary care physician. Often that will start with just a consultation where you'll discuss with the physician the symptoms the person is experiencing, their medical history, and the doctor will gather insight from both the patient as well as family members who are involved. They'll review the symptoms, so they'll look at information on when the symptoms first started. They'll look how symptoms have progressed, and then they'll look at any changes in daily functioning the patient is experiencing. And again, they'll gather that information from both the patient and family. They'll perform a physical exam. So this is to assess overall health and to rule out if there's any other types of health issues that could be mimicking dementia, such as an infection or thyroid imbalances. Oftentimes, they might take urine or blood tests to run labs, and again, just to look at those underlying health issues. Brain imaging will be performed, so they'll look at CAT scans, PET scans, MRIs to identify if there's any structural brain changes. The patient will go through some cognitive and neurological testing to evaluate memory, problem-solving, language skills, and other cognitive functions. You may hear terms like MoCA or SLUMS or MMSE, and these are all different ways to measure cognitive changes. Oftentimes people may also seek neuropsychological testing, and this may or may not be beneficial. It just probably depends on what you have figured out to this point. One thing we caution is those tests are like 4 hours in length. Just consider the stress and anxiety of the person, and to determine whether or not if you want to proceed with that. With all this information, they'll come up with a diagnosis confirmation. They'll combine those findings to determine the likelihood and type of dementia.
Also, I want to add with this for the Parkinson's, it's very much the same system here when we're looking to confirm a Parkinson's diagnosis. There is a DAT scan, so it's similar to the MRI, but it can help to measure the dopamine-producing cells. But really and truly, one of the best things is to get a good neurologist or a movement disorder specialist to help ensure that they're getting that accurate diagnosis. So that's a really important component for that. Yes, sir?
Is there any kind of blood test for any of that stuff to show up?
So yes, for Parkinson's, there is a skin biopsy that they're doing as well. So there is some reliability, in research, there's really good reliability for that if you're looking for the typical Parkinson's diagnosis. With dementias, they are doing blood work tests to diagnose Alzheimer's. So that is an option. At this point, from my understanding, it is not covered by most insurance companies, but it can be done. So, anybody else have anything to add to that? Some of you might know more than that. So let's talk just a little bit about, she asked about hereditary issues when we're looking at causes for dementia and Parkinson's. And we already looked at a couple of those modifiable risks, but let's look a little bit deeper. So from nutrition and hydration, the Mediterranean diet or the MIND diet has the best research telling us about how to give our brains and our bodies the best chance of fighting the degeneration, I guess I'll say. And then, of course, water is really important. A lot of our folks, especially as we age, dehydration can really cause challenges in cognition and urinary tract infections. So if you see a significant change in altered status, in altered mental status, confusion, just a sudden onset of a change, looking at a urinary tract infection or dehydration is important. And then, as Linda mentioned, the labs and scans can help us to make sure that we aren't anemic, that we don't have any vitamin deficiencies. Physical activity and exercise are things that can help us slow those progressions of disease. About 150 minutes of exercise and then physical activity, things like gardening. 150 minutes a week, not a day. And then we also want to make sure we include that cognitive exercise as well. So I get asked the question a lot, should I be doing crossword puzzles? My question is, do you like crossword puzzles? And if you say no, then I say no, you shouldn't be doing them because you're not going to do them, you're going to get frustrated, and it's not going to be beneficial for you. So finding things that are challenging, whether it's a word search, whether it's reading a book and then writing about what you read, whether it's doing the Sudoku or whatever type of thing it is, but something where you have focused attention or you're trying to learn something new. New learning is very, very beneficial for your brain. And then sleep and stress, we need to think about the quality and the quantity of sleep. I also want to just double check here. This goes for everybody, okay? Caregivers, people with disease processes, friends, family, everybody. If you are struggling or your loved one is struggling with quality and quantity of sleep, talk with your doctor. There are sleep tests that can be done, and they can be done in your own home now. So find out if there is something something that's not firing correctly to allow you to sleep well that can be modified. Meditation, counseling, and medication are other options that can help with stress and sleep. And then we talked already about hearing and vision and engagement. Get your senses tested and get out there and be engaged, and keep your care partners and your loved ones with disease processes engaged as well.
So we're going to talk about communicating with people with dementia. So it's important to assess the environment you're in. Make sure the environment is not too noisy. So if there's music playing in the background or the TV is on, you might want to turn those off to help the person be able to focus on you and what you're saying. Again, the hearing aids, making sure their hearing aids are working, that they can hear you. Sight is also important when communicating. So if they need glasses, are they wearing their glasses? Lighting, pay attention to lighting. Sometimes that can create glares or shadows, which could result into hallucinations. Look at clutter. And some of that is like clutter that you might have on the table, but it also can be like too many things on the wall that is distracting. So they're looking at things on the wall instead of paying attention to you, or looking at the clutter on the floor, on the tables or whatnot. And just an example of that, something that Michelle shared with me. We had a resident recently who, the staff were great. They got her out into the living room. They had her all set up. She liked to do word searches and little puzzle books, and they had them all set up for her. But there was too many. She wasn't sure what to do with all those books. So by stopping and helping her find just one book, turning to the page and, let's try this one. And she was able to grab that pen and start working on her book, whereas before she was looking lost and confused. So that's an example. Paying the attention to the temperature in the room, being too hot or too cold. I know sometimes I get distracted by those things. So a person with dementia will be even more so. Think about their comfort. Is the furniture comfortable? Is it too soft, too hard? Do they need to be repositioned? If you're sitting in the same position, sometimes we got to adjust. Are they hungry or thirsty? Do they need to use the bathroom? Is their clothing too tight? Are they in pain? All those things can impact communication.
And a lot of those things are things that the individual with dementia may not be able to express to you, right? So learning to watch their movements and their behaviors, and offering different things that might be better for them. If they're just really kind of just sliding around there, trying to figure out which of those things might be impacting that movement. Any questions? We're going to do something that is not very comfortable for either of us, so we're doing some new learning just to demonstrate to you some new learning. So we would like to just do a little mock scenario of a home situation. So we are sisters, and we're going to demonstrate a not so great way to communicate and how to get a task done. We are by no means trying to make anybody feel guilty. We're not trying to tell you that this is a bad way to do things, and if you've ever done this, then you're terrible. The goal for this is to say that life happens, and we have things that we need to do as care partners, and we get into that focus, and then we sometimes lose sight of what it is that our loved one with dementia needs. And also, we've had habits of doing these same behaviors for so many years. We've been sisters living in the same apartment for 30 years, and I've always been able to have a conversation with her with music playing, not looking at her and telling her what to do. It's never been a problem. But now she has dementia, and now all those things that I've always done aren't helping either of us, okay? All right, we gotta get ready. Mary Jo's coming soon. Oh yeah, and she's gonna bring Tom with her. Gotta go. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I saw her last week, and she was so excited. She couldn't believe that we've been living in the same apartment for 30 years. Oh, go ahead and get to work. Yeah, get all the plates and napkins and the cups. Don't forget, we gotta get drinks. So come on, Linda, it's time. We're running out of time. I can't do it by myself all the time. Please get the stuff. Never mind, I'll do it myself. Here, set the table. Okay. It's really awkward to be mean. But again, it's what happens in our daily lives, right? We've done it with our children growing up as well. We get into our own world and we don't always take that moment to pause and to stop and to think about what someone else needs. And again, that's daily life. So please don't look at that as I've failed, I've done that before. This is I can push the quiet, right? I can make it quieter. I can do this, that, or the other. So what were some of the things that I was not very gentle with? Yes?
Well, you were talking away from her, number one, amongst all the commotion.
Yes.
There's no way she could have heard you.
Yes. Yep. Talking away from her with all the commotion.
You got frustrated with her because she wasn't able to hear you.
Yes. Yeah. I got frustrated because she wasn't able to hear me, and she probably wasn't able to understand why. What else did I keep doing?
Things that needed to be done quickly. I mean, you just went from one thing to another to another.
Yeah, I just went from one task to another task, and I was switching topics. I was talking about how long we've lived here. Mary Jo, Tom, get to the work, do this, do that, right? Anything else?
Doing it for her when you just didn't wait.
Yeah, ultimately I just went and did it, and then she felt even more lost, right? Yeah. Anything else
You
you
were
want to
not considerate with that music.
I was not considerate with the music at all. No.
Just because you like it and it's...
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, okay, so now we'll try it a little bit better. Hopefully. Hey, just a second. Turn that off. It's a little bit loud.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I like it though.
Yeah, me too. It's fun. Yeah. We used to dance to that all the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Back in the day.
The days. So Mary Jo is coming tonight.
Mary Jo, I haven't seen her in forever.
Right. Mary Jo from the football games. We would see her every Friday night with her friend Tom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We had a lot of fun.
We did have a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. She's coming over tonight for dinner, so we need to get ready.
Okay. What can I do to help?
Let's let you get the table set. How about that?
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Come on over. Let's get the plates and cups out. So there, right? Here's your plates.
Okay.
Let me give them to you. 2, how many plates? 3 for Tom, 4 for Mary Jo.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll get 4 cups. I'm going to sit them on top. Be careful. Let's go sit back down and get ready. Then we'll take 1 cup and 1 plate. I shouldn't have stacked them. Okay, you do the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 cup, 1 plate. 1 cup, 1 plate. Great.
All done.
Great job. Thanks for helping. Would you like some water?
I think I'll have tea.
Oh, tea it is.
Yeah.
I'll get that. All right. What about that? Much better? Did I get as much done? Did I make her feel important? Yeah.
Linda.
And what if she would have dropped a plate?
Well,
I'm
that's on
supposed to
me
do that.
because I was silly and put 4 cups on top of 4 plates.
I was very careful.
What other things did you see that were helpful?
Down on her level
Got down on her level.
to talk
Yes.
to her.
Yeah.
And,
Yes. Eye
and
contact.
even though you could have done it faster,
Mm-hmm.
you let her do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did go back and try to get some of my work done, right? While she was putting those things out. Yeah. And I think that's one of the really hard things for care partners is that it is easier and faster if you just do it yourself, right? But then each time you do it for yourself and you take it away from them, you just keep putting more and more on your shoulders, right? And each time that I take something away from her, something that brings her purpose and pride and independence, she's creeping down lower and lower in her self-perception and feelings as well. How about the music?
Much better.
I thought you might like that. Yes.
I thought it was very helpful that you kind of reminded her who they were and that they'd gone to football games together and brought that back to her.
Yes, and that's a really important thing as you look at people coming into your homes, or if you're going into other people's homes, is to give them that background, right? And even if let's say then that I'm Mary Jo, and coming in, Mary Jo's coming in, then when I say, oh, look, Miss Linda, Mary Jo from the football games is here, right? So giving them that little bit of information, that kind of history, can be a huge support for them. And you can even add more. Like it's fall, just like it was in the football games, whenever we would see Mary Jo and Tom at the games, right? So you're giving them some orientation, you're telling them the back history as well, okay? And then what about the pausing? Yeah, go ahead.
I mentioned dropping a plate because that would have really thrown her off.
Yeah. Yeah, so what would have happened if she would or I would have dropped a plate? Yeah.
I probably would have gotten upset that I broke a plate. Wasn't doing my job correctly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's, that same kind of concept of like, we have a person that we get to spend some time with, and he always says, if it ain't burning down the house, don't worry about it. And so, yeah, oh, look, yep, those darn plates, they're old anyways. We need some new ones. And you just get the broom, sweep it up out of the way. You don't have to take care of it all, just get it out of the way. And then when Mary Jo and Tom come, then you can go and clean it up. Yeah.
I like the way you tried to get her to drink water.
Yeah. Yeah, and what else happened there? Was that an awkward time of waiting?
And let her think for her answer.
Yeah, yeah. So counting to 10, when you ask someone a question or ask them to do something, count to yourself to 10 at least, giving them that time to try to come up with it. No matter what the neurological disease is, that pause can help a lot. Okay? All right. Nice job, you guys. Good insight there. All right, so some communication strategies. We're just going to kind of review some of the many things that you guys already noted there. Sitting face to face and making eye contact. So having eyes on eyes, using short sentences and or instructions. An important thing to think about is telling them what you want them to do, not what not to do. So place cup, place plate. Place cup, place plate. Don't put 2 cups there, right? Because then she's going to put 2 cups there. Using a gentle, audible voice with a positive uplift. There's a difference between that and talking down to someone, right? So you want to still show that respect, but it's positive and it's uplifting. Using facial expressions to show compassion and patience. So for example, waiting for her for that 10 seconds for her to answer. I'm just looking at her, hopefully, but I'm not frustrated or irritated and letting my face show that. And then using writing, pictures, and simple gestures can be very helpful. So for example, when I was helping her to come over here to the cabinets, I did my little Vanna White thing, come follow me, but then I also demonstrated, I modeled it. We could also have little placemats, so you have a placemat with the drawing of the plate, the drawing of the cup, the drawing of the silverware, and then the loved one can set the table to match with those items. So they put them on top of those pictures. And then pausing a minimum of 10 seconds before asking again or responding. I think another important thing is when you do ask a question again, try to ask it the same way that you asked it the first time. So if I said, would you like water to drink? And then I waited, and then I said, how about some tea? So I changed my question, and she was probably still processing water, and now I've asked her about tea. So try to keep that second question as close to the first as possible.
So with supporting caregivers, we've talked about how to communicate and so forth, but now we want to talk a little bit about supporting caregivers. One of the first things, oftentimes we'll skip ahead and ask about how the person with dementia is doing. It's really important to stop and ask the caregiver how he or she is doing as well. Maybe helping them with some chores, maybe mowing the lawn or doing the dishes or cooking some meals and bringing it over so they just have to pop something in the microwave to heat up can also be very helpful. It helps take off some of that burden for the caregiver. Maybe going shopping for them. You can call them and say, hey, I'm on my way to the grocery store. Can I pick up anything for you? Another important one is spending time with a person with dementia. And that's kind of what we're hoping to do with the in-home respite program, is that by you spending time with the person with dementia, that may allow the caregiver to go take a nap. Maybe they can run to the store themselves, or maybe they get to go enjoy something they really like to do. Maybe it's as simple as having coffee with a friend. It just is something that helps give them a little bit of a respite and break. And then another one is just to allow them to share. Listen to them without judgment or pity. Let them talk about how hard it is to be a caregiver. And it's not about necessarily making suggestions, but just listening to them.
So before we go on and tell you a little bit about the different programs, the free programs that we provide and where we hope to go with you guys in the future, do you have any questions about anything we've talked about so far or otherwise? Yes.
Something I had an experience with recently, visiting someone, went over to see a hospice patient or person, and the person was sleeping, so I said, well, I'll come back again later. Then she said, could you just stop and just visit with me? Because everybody had been coming in to see that person. Mm-hmm. And that's sometimes you forget about the caregiver, that I need help too. I need conversation, real conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and good for that caregiver to ask for that. I think, as caregivers, it's hard to ask for what you need. And so even going back to that list that Linda shared, encouraging caregivers to make a list of things that they would love. Something, maybe they love a certain type of coffee. And so they keep a list of what the coffee type is that they like, or they love homemade chocolate chip cookies, or they always run out of milk. So, just having a list of things that they want or need, or things that they might need help with, so that when you do call them, then you say, hey, look at your list and tell me what I can do for you today, right? And good for you for being there and to take that time too. So I would just like to kind of echo, I'm not really a care partner much for my husband. My husband has had quite a bit of health issues. We've had some other things, but I think learning how to listen, and to have just that easy sense about you, like you're not in a hurry to leave, that you can make that time to listen to that care partner. Because, as a care partner, you start to just see pity in people's eyes a lot, and I think that was one of the hardest things for me. So, like, how do you, and maybe you practice it, like, how do you show that empathy for somebody without placing that sense of pity? But I think that making the time is probably the best thing that you can do, and asking that caregiver first and foremost. How can I help you? What would feel good for you today? Is really important. So, all right. So the memory program summary. So these are programs that Meadowlark provides. Everything we do is free of charge for anybody. You do not have to live at Meadowlark. You do not have to be a passport member. You do not even have to be 65. Our youngest participant is 28 years old, and our oldest is 102, I think. So everything we do is here for you guys. We provide personal consultations. This is just a meeting with myself or my colleague, Katie. And we just get to know you. We want to know about what's happening in your life, where struggles are, where things are going well. And then we help you to navigate the journey with dementia. We have exercise and yoga classes, educational classes, art classes. We work with the Beach Museum of Art for a couple of different activities. Linda facilitates an amazing memory cafe, and we also have a caregiver support group. So the one that we have at Meadowlark, the caregiver group meets at the same time that Linda meets with those with dementia, and does the memory cafe. That way both individuals are getting their cups filled. We also have a program in Wamego and one here at Thomas More. And then outreach, where we're trying to educate the general population, and as well as some of them are to raise money for our free services. We have a Memory Matter Symposium in March. We have an Art Mingle event, a Fiesta to Remember at Rockin' K's. And then we also do participate with the Dementia Friendly Manhattan. From the Parkinson's program perspective, again, we will meet with individuals and help them to navigate that journey with Parkinson's. And then we, additionally to the ones that we offer for memory, we have a voice class, and then we have a conversation group for people with Parkinson's. And then we also have a couple of young onset groups for individuals with Parkinson's and their care partners. And then we have a program in Junction City, an exercise program. And then our outreach opportunities are Pig Out for Parkinson's, and that's at Rockin' K's, and then Empowered Live and the Speedy PD Race for Parkinson's. Those are in August.
So as Michelle mentioned, here at St. Thomas More, we do offer a weekly caregiver meeting for caregivers to come and learn more about the disease, to engage and support each other. That's here every Monday at 9:30 a.m. Is it this room over here, Tower Room?
No, it's over in the classroom.
Oh, it's in the classroom, sorry. So, and what we hope is here in the near future is to offer a memory cafe program at the same time as the caregiver meeting. And so that's really where we're looking for volunteers. The idea is for this to be run by volunteers and to lead a cafe program where you socialize with with a small group of people, reminisce about things from past, and it gives them an opportunity to share their stories as well. And kind of how I do it at Meadowlark is each week I have a different topic that we focus on. So I think this week we're talking about Chubby Checker. So we're going to talk about kind of his background, and then we're going to look at some of the different dance fads from the 50s and do a little dancing this week. Might be chair dancing, but you get so involving some movement in that too. We've done programs on ice cream and made our own homemade ice cream with plastic bags and learned about fun facts about ice cream. So we celebrate different holidays and learn about those as well. So each week we have something different to focus on that helps engage them and get them to participate. I generally always have something with music because music just really seems to draw out memories and help the person engage as well. I may have someone who hasn't said a word the entire program, but I put on some music and they are singing and moving, so it's a lot of fun to see. With the in-home respite program, again, that would be run by trained volunteers to interact with the person with dementia in their own home, so where they feel they are most safe and comfortable, and that it would allow the caregiver to possibly leave for an hour or two and run some errands, or maybe go to a movie or do something that will help them recharge and take care of themselves a little bit as well.
So what now? Keep learning. You've got a great start going now, and maybe even before you came tonight, but keep learning more. Raise awareness in the community and be a model for the different ways to interact. Talk to your doctor if you have any concerns about yourself or a loved one. Refer friends and family for support. Again, Meadowlark is a great resource for that support. Be engaged. Come to the hands-on training in a couple weeks to learn more specifics on providing care to those with dementia.
So yes, so our next program will be Monday, October 20th at 6:30. It will be here in this room again. And this presentation will focus on those tips and tricks to help you interact with someone with dementia. So maybe help with those visual or hearing difficulties they may be having, or behaviors that could come up in a memory cafe or in a home kind of respite situation. So you can kind of think ahead on how to interact and resolve those. So, oh, and please tell your friends to watch our presentation and encourage them to come on the 20th as well. We would like them to watch the presentation before coming to the 20th so they have that general overview. Any questions? All right. All right, thank you.